Thank you, everybody, for joining us, whether you're joining us here tonight or you're watching the replay of this. We really appreciate your time. Tonight's presentation is to invite our community to provide input and feedback on the recovery plan and the potential uses of our federal recovery funds, specifically related to the American Rescue Plan Elementary and Secondary Emergency Relief Funds, or otherwise known as ARP ESSER 3. I'm Angie Ledoux. I am the Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union Director of Curriculum and the Federal Grants Manager. Please welcome Brittany Preston. She's our recovery coordinator, and she's going to start us off this evening.
Yes, I am. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm going to go over a little bit about how this presentation will be organized so that you can follow along. And like Angie said, we'll be posting it later, so you can always go back and reference things if you're not quite sure. Today, we're going to be talking about the recovery plan. I'll be going over the 3 goal areas, as well as the strategies that we kind of identified as needing to utilize along the way. And then Angie will be going over the ARP ESSER 3 overview of the funding sources for all of the strategies that we're implementing, as well as talking about what we hope to do for the future. And then we'll end with hopes and dreams regarding, your hopes and dreams about what you hope to see moving forward in our schools. Last year, when we were tasked with developing a recovery plan, we did a needs assessment and collected not only feedback from stakeholders, students, staff, community members, but also we gathered, really hard data about what we were seeing. That included academic data, surveys for social emotional impacts, how students were feeling, how teachers were feeling, as well as attendance data, and a lot more came up from that. What I'm going to do is I want to make sure my screen is big enough for everybody to see. So I am going to turn off my camera to make sure my internet's working really well. And I'm going to make my screen a little bit bigger so that we can get started. Let's make sure I can do that here. Hold on. All right. And Angie, just let me know if there's any questions or anything along the way.
Okay? Absolutely. I will. If you have a question, we're going to ask you to put it in the chat. We're going to present, and then we'll have time for questions and answers after the presentation.
Absolutely. What I'd like to do too is I am going to post a couple of things that you can reference in the chat. So the first thing I am going to post is a link to a fact sheet that we developed this summer, and it has a lot of kind of basic information, basic overview of our recovery plan. It's like a summary, as well as information about ESSER 3. The next link I'm going to post here is hold on one second. This here is a community outreach question and answer. So this summer we posted a survey out to the community to get feedback about our recovery plan and ESSER funds. And there were quite a few questions that came back from that. So I developed this question and answer. This can also be found on our curriculum and instruction website. And I am going to put that in the chat as well for people to reference. A link to that, because there you're going to be able to find a lot of resources more in depth about ESSER 3 and ESSER 2 funds, as well as the recovery plan. We are going to post this video to that website and have another link to fill out a Google form if you have additional feedback after this meeting is over. So, feel free to access those as it works for you.
And Brittany, we'll also make sure that those are posted alongside the video on the web page if you're watching the replay.
Awesome. So we're going to go through the 3 different goal areas that the state really gave us. They gave us these topics to address. So the first one is engagement and truancy. The next is academic achievement. And then they gave us social emotional learning, mental health, and well-being. So those are the categories that we needed to address. Within each one, we're going to identify the problem of practice that the recovery team talked about at the beginning, how they came up with the solution for that, and then what are the strategies that we're going to use to meet our goal. So I'm going to get right in here to our engagement and truancy. What we did is we looked at a bunch of data and determined that attendance rates declined during the pandemic. This probably isn't too surprising to people, but it's certainly an area that needed to be addressed. So the way that the team determined that we really needed to address this is by improving engagement among all students, by providing autonomy, competency, and belonging. There are four strategies that we decided we were going to use to address this area: reducing class sizes, utilizing the Leader in Me framework, providing additional mental health supports, and then providing training and collaboration time for our teachers. And we are going to go into each one of these categories so you can really see what the thinking is around that and how we're implementing those. So when it comes to reducing class sizes, the goal was to build stronger relationships between staff and students. If we're able to do that, we're able to engage more students along the way. The other huge area for this is that we're able to provide more individualized instructional opportunities for our students through our multi-tiered system of supports. And we're going to be talking a lot more about that as we move forward. But the goal really is to look at each student individually and say, what do we need? The students are coming back in a variety of different places in their learning and their social emotional state. So we need to be able to provide more individualized opportunities for those students. In order to reduce class sizes, we were able to use a variety of different funding sources in order to hire additional classroom teachers in order to keep some of our classrooms that were a little bit larger to a smaller, more manageable size. And we were able to hire interventionists. I do want to point out that we, unfortunately, we're not able to fill all of the positions. We still have several open interventionist positions available. So we're looking to fill those along the way. But interventionists are really key in providing that individualized support and additional support that students might need along the way as we identify them through our multi-tiered systems of supports. We're going to move right into the Leader in Me framework. And this is one of the only interventions or strategies that we're using that is funded solely through ESSER funds. So you'll see here that's the case. In most of the other slides, you'll notice that there's a variety of different funding sources that were used. The goal of utilizing this framework is to help us organize and better implement some of the work, such as trauma-informed practices, collaborative problem solving, proficiency use, student voice and choice, and a variety of other kind of work that we've been doing along the way. We're currently doing this we're utilizing the framework to integrate all of them with the emphasis of developing leaders at all levels of the organization. So working with students, teachers, community members, administration, so we're all taking a role in making all of this work more manageable and ingraining it into what we're doing on a daily basis. So rather than it being an additional thing, it should help us organize all of our work and ingrain it into what we're already doing. Leader in Me also supports personal accountability at all levels and emphasizes goal setting and tracking to make sure that what we're doing is working. This includes teachers' goal setting and making sure we're using data. It includes students reviewing their successes and the areas that they need to work on and setting goals around that. So what I'm going to do next is play a short video. The goal of this video is to really help you gain a little bit more insight into how we will utilize Leader in Me and what our hopes are for the impact that it will have in our system. It really describes the power of Leader in Me and ingraining its core beliefs into our schools so that we can develop stronger schools that create leaders and that challenge students to take charge of their learning and be an active member of their school community. So I am going to play this video. Please interrupt me if there's a sound issue or anything like that. It might start off a little bit loud at first. right, so very short, but hopefully you got a little bit of a glimpse of the true impact that that could have in our school system. Next, we're going to move on. We are going to talk a little bit more about Leader in Me in depth, as several of the strategies that we have will help support a variety of different goals. So it's kind of all intertwined. But so you'll hear a bit more information about Leader in Me along the way as well. But we're going to move on to mental health supports. We are going to address this a little bit later at another slide as well, but the basics is we know that there was a need for additional mental health supports. And in order to do that, we have a lot already, but we were able to add a few extra things, such as We Are Hope. Each school has additional We Are Hope hours this year. We were able to add school-based clinicians, and we were able to add behavioral analysts. I believe all schools have a behavior analyst except for Heartland at this time. So we are working on filling that position. But one of the big things around the mental health supports and truancy is when we sent out the community survey this summer, as well as when we sent out surveys to students last year, I mean, they indicated that their mental health was it's not surprising. It definitely impacted their ability to attend school and access the supports at school. So we wanted to be sure we were able to improve that. All right, so moving forward into training collaboration, there were a lot of questions around this, so I want to be sure that we clarify. We know how important teacher training is, and we want to make sure that our teachers have the training they need to be able to support our learners, and that they have the time that they need to collaborate with each other to plan engaging lessons, differentiated instruction, support students using equitable and trauma-informed practices, and make data-informed educational decisions for each student. We are really focusing a lot of that through our collaborative practices time at the end of the day. That is the time that we can provide support for our teachers in doing integrated planning, co-planning with their teams, cross-disciplinary. It's also a time that we're giving them for MTSS to really talk about the instruction that they're doing, look at data, adjust their instruction, talk about interventions that individual students need. And then we're also going to be doing curriculum planning during that time. So it's a really amazing time for our staff. We know that one thing staff really wanted from last year is they really appreciated the time to collaborate because they had that additional time in the afternoons. And so we wanted to be sure that we were giving that to them. The other piece is this year, we really needed to refine our multi-tier system of supports to make sure we have a system that will use data intentionally to inform our instructional practices at the universal level, and then identify students in need of something additional and make sure that we have the staff and the time to be able to implement it. All students are coming back at a different place, and we want to be sure that we're assessing those needs quickly and getting students what they need. A few ways that we are doing that is one is through my position as the recovery coordinator and MTSS coordinator for the SU. I am working with a team of professionals that represents every school in our SU, and we're working to establish those systems, make sure teachers have the training that they need to be able to provide to implement those systems effectively and use data. And then we also were able to work really heavily with our additional interventionists as well, and provide training there so that they can help run those meetings and make sure students are getting what they need. Summer Academy was another area that another strategy we used to address the need that our students have. And we utilize that to provide an opportunity in the summer for qualifying students to receive additional instruction. The hope was to prevent students who are already behind so that they don't fall further behind, make sure that they're continuing to move forward or at least not losing things over the summer. Again, we used a variety of different funding sources in order to make these things happen for this school year. All right, we're going to head back to our main thing here and go into goal number 2, which is academic achievement. So students all had different experiences during the pandemic. Some students did not show significant academic loss, but other students were clearly impacted. our data really suggested that our students who were struggling either academically or socially prior to the pandemic were more heavily impacted by everything we went through over the last year and a half. This resulted in variable academic achievement and a broader range of student success. So we have students coming back and they're at so many different levels. I mean, we had that before, and of course, differentiation is a area that we are always working on. But coming back this year, there was definitely a divide. So in order to do that, we talked a little bit about this already. We really needed to improve our multi-tiered system of supports. This means that we're using the best instructional practices and data to ensure that all students are getting what they need. When someone isn't getting what they need, we take steps to support them. So a couple of things that we did is we developed a leadership team, a recovery leadership team. Again, you're going to see reduced class sizes across all of the goal areas, summer academy implementation, transitional kindergarten, and then again with the staff training and collaboration. When it comes to the recovery leadership team, this was not necessarily a sit down and talk about it kind of team. It was really more about meeting with individual people along the way, getting a lot of feedback, coming back to the administration and saying, this is what I have. We've talked to local agencies, we've gotten stakeholder input. We've provided a lot of information. Now, what are we going to do about it? So this started prior to, before the recovery plan was written, in order to write the recovery plan, and then it's going to be an ongoing process over the next 2 years and hopefully longer, because we absolutely always want to make sure we're working as a team with our community and our stakeholders. So reducing class sizes, we talked about this a little bit already, but not only will it be easier to engage our students and provide more student voice in the class when we can keep classes smaller, but ultimately teachers are able to provide more individualized support, which will impact student achievement. So I have these wonderful pictures from our Heartland students. Really, you can see the class sizes is smaller. It's just a bit more manageable for teachers, which is fantastic. Moving over here into Summer Academy, we did talk about this a little bit, but I wanted to give a few more details about Summer Academy. We served 99 students this summer with approximately 42 contracted staff. The morning program ran for 4 hours per day, 5 days a week for 5 weeks. And then in the afternoon, there was additional support such as busing, HCRS, and We Are Hope. So we were really excited. That's a very, very robust program. We are currently collecting data and we'll be analyzing, to what level there was or was not any loss this summer for students who attended Summer Academy. So we're really excited to see that. Our transitional kindergarten is new this year. It's a really exciting opportunity for us. We are hosting that at Heartland Elementary School, which is great. Thank you, Heartland, for that. We know that some of our youngest students were particularly impacted by the pandemic. They don't know what school even looks like normally without a mask. So we found that there were more students than in a typical year that were not quite ready for our normal kindergarten programming. So we established this program to give a little bit of an extra dose to support students as they get ready to be in school. The goal of the program is to bridge the Vermont Early Learning Standards with kindergarten grade level standards using a play-based approach. We have 3 students from Heartland and 6 students from Mount Ascutney School District. They hired 1 teacher and 1 support staff member to run that program. So that's a very exciting opportunity, and hopefully in the future, the other schools will be able to get involved in that as well. So, or have students that would benefit. All right. We already talked about staff training collaboration, but I wanted to give a little bit of information about why it's so important. Studies have shown that collaborative practices in schools results in improved self-efficacy, increased teaching effectiveness, and improvement of instructional quality, which really is what's going to impact student learning. So if we provide these opportunities for staff to collaborate and learn from each other, we are really going to benefit on the other end. Students are really going to benefit. So we're really excited to be able to provide that opportunity this year. All All right, one final goal area here. We have goal number 3, which is social emotional learning, mental health, and well-being. So the problem within the pandemic, which I think we can all understand, is an increase of mental health risk factors. On the bright side, what we did see last year is the behavioral data really improved due to some of the COVID specific interventions, such as smaller class sizes, less transitions, and shortened school day. So keeping that in mind, we wanted to be sure that we're addressing the need, but also keeping what worked. So we did spend a lot of time talking with staff about what's going well, what's really working, what are some things that we want to move forward with. So we're going to move through this a little bit, but improve relationships is really what it boils down to. And we're going to do that in a variety of different ways. Leader in Me, I put just voice there, but really it's student voice and choice. It's SEL. It's we're going to go through that a little bit more, but it's a really exciting opportunity for us. We're going to reduce class sizes. Obviously, it's easy to see how reducing class sizes might result in a little bit less stress for students and the ability for teachers to get to know and build relationships with their students on a different level. And then we're going to go through mental health supports and data collection. And we addressed this a little bit earlier, but I want to really delve into what is each school actually doing with the emotional support that they have in their building. So first, we're going to go into this Leader in Me. The goal here is to create a supportive environment and a culture of voice and choice to empower students to lead their own learning using their interests. The other is to create a bridge between school and home where parents and community members can be involved. We are early in our implementation, so we're going to build our capacity in that area, but really Leader in Me is about doing this together. It's about building a community, not just in isolation. And then support students in setting goals and self-regulating their learning and helping them truly engage in the learning process. Leader in Me is also supports the social emotional well-being of students by helping them become better problem solvers, teaching them how to manage their emotions and support the development of a mindset where we are a community and success of one supports the success of all. So we're really excited for that. And I do encourage you to go on the Leader in Me website and learn more about that program and what they have to offer in the 7 habits. I'm sure you'll be hearing more about it from your principals and the teachers as we move forward. Reducing class sizes, we already talked about this a little bit, but it's not surprising that smaller class sizes is going to help teachers build closer relationships with their students and their families. As we move into this mental health, whoops, sorry about that. Mental health supports. What I did is I broke this down by school. I wanted to give you more information about what the schools have. So this includes new staff as well as supports that were previously in place prior to the pandemic. The Mount Scottney School District, I have the S and the D reversed there. Sorry about that. They have 3 school counselors, 2 staff members from We Are Hope, which are 5 days a week, full days, 1.5 BCBAs, which is our behavior analysts. We have 2 social emotional interventionists over there, 1.5 HCRS clinicians, and 1 SEI assistant, as well as 1 school psychologist. Over here at Heartland, we have 2 school counselors, 1 staff member from We Are Hope, again, 5 days a week, full days, 1 HCRS clinician, and 2 social emotional support staff members. And as I said earlier, they are working on hiring that additional BCBA. Weathersfield School has 1 school counselor, zero 0.5 BCBAs, 1 staff member from We Are Hope, and 0.6 of an HCRS clinician. SU-wide, we have 1 social worker that works across the SU. They are primarily housed at HCS, but they do work in other buildings. And then the other important tool that we are putting in place for this school year is Panorama. This is a mental health screening tool, and it's used to help us in assessing the needs of our students to fine-tune our social emotional learning instruction and provide more individualized intervention for students based on the results of the assessment. Hopefully it'll identify some of those risk factors that we were talking about and identify students that might need a little bit of extra support or intervention. Alrighty, so I am going to back out of this whole thing and I am going to, at this point, turn it on over to Angie to talk about the funding sources.
Might help if I'm unmuted. Windsor Southeast is depends on a variety of funding sources. So go ahead and click that link, Brittany, or that bubble. So we have the Vermont Education Fund, which is raised through property taxes and the sales and use tax. We rely on federal grants. For example, the consolidated federal grants are like Title I, and other programs such as the school meals program, IDEA B, which is our federal special ed grant money. And we also rely on local grants such as the Byrne Foundation has funded several things at Heartland School, but also across our supervisory union. There's a fund at Wethersfield that's was set up just for them called the Hicks Nichols grant, and that was from a local benefactor that set that up for their school. Federal relief funds that you've been hearing about since last spring, ESSER 1, if you go ahead and click that link, that bubble, thinking. So this is the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. Its period of performance, basically when the funds can be accessed and spent, is between March 13th, 2020, which was the official start of the pandemic, to September 30th, 2022. So after next summer. Investments that we've made with ESSER 1 funds included long-term subs to cover remote teachers. This was last school year. We had a purchasing agent. We had to put that in place and centralize our purchasing process in order to support purchasing during shutdown. And then we've continued with that through this year. Now that position is funded locally. And Summer Academy, which was provided July and August. The total award for Windsor Southeast was $276,130. Thank you, Brittany. Next bubble. ESSER 2 stands for the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. And its period of performance starts from the beginning of the pandemic to September 30th, 2023. So we get another year added on. Many of the recovery plan activities, such as professional learning, additional teachers and mental health supports, and Summer Academy, have been included in investments in our ESSER 2. The total award was $1,165,515. Thank you. Next bubble. And the reason for our forum this evening is to talk about the American Rescue Plan Act, ESSER 3. That period of performance goes to September 30th, 2024. It is the largest bucket of federal relief funds that we are receiving. Investments proposed we're hoping that through our community forums, and we're holding one in each of our school districts, we have invited input from our community members in order to see if continuing with our current investments and strategies that we have put in place with ESSER 2 funding will either continue, and how we will change that, revise that, adjust that in order to meet the needs of the stakeholders, identified needs of our stakeholders. The total award is $2,610,654. If you want to learn more about the ESSER funding, if you go to the wsesu.net site and you go to the curriculum page, there is a web page called All Things ESSER, and that walks you through the different 3 different programs that have been provided to us.
We'd like to thank all of our staff for watching this community forum video. We hope that it was informative for you, and that you learned a little bit something about our recovery plan and our ARP ESSER 3. What we'd like to do is have you complete your exit ticket, which will be shared with you. to give us a little bit of feedback, give us your thoughts about the recovery plan and, your hopes and dreams for moving forward with ARP ESSER funds. We will be reviewing all of that information and certainly taking it into consideration as we begin our planning for ARP ESSER 3. Thank you very much and have a great day.